Hi, and welcome to the Future Workflows, where today we're going to explore the intersection of AI, automation, and the workplace revolution that's happening right now. I'm Delia Boss, and I'm going to be your host for this episode. And today we're diving into something that's quietly, or maybe not so quietly, changing the way we work: AI powered workflows. AI is no longer just about text generation or chatbots, but it is fundamentally changing the way we work as individuals and the way companies function. And that's why I am so excited to have this conversation today with these three wonderful experts. So, in thinking about automations and AI powered workflows, what are some surprising industries where AI workflows are making an impact?
I will say, first of all, the thing that becomes surprising is where you may not have thought about the use of technology being so central, but in fact, there's technology everywhere and in every industry. And what automation is great for is when there are repetitive processes that take a lot of time. So, the first industry that comes to mind that's very much transformed is construction. Construction is a huge amount of planning, inventory, supply chain, but also very specific and repetitive processes for pretty much every part of the cycle of any kind of building project. And there, absolutely, automation is it's changing the way that that construction is happening.
I do have an interesting one that I read about recently where Wendy's is kind of like trialing this automated system where when you place your order while going through the drive-through, it's actually an AI agent that you're talking to, and they have this kind of conversational banter and even like upsell customers, reduce wait times. So that was an interesting one where it's actually like being deployed and tested, and they're seeing like really positive results from it. So the human in the loop term comes from, the early days of AI from the 1960s when they essentially kind of uh, created this concept where nothing should be fully autonomous, right? And that at any system that's designed, there is a checkpoint where there's a human that can intervene, that can look at things before they go out, before they kind of go to the next system, things like that. What's really important is the first starting point is understanding what is AI really good at and where can you offload things to the AI, right? What are things that we need to uniquely hold on to as humans? And then what is that kind of messy middle, that gray space where it's AI augmenting human work, right? But we will move to a place where there will be like autonomous loops that are set up, right? Where we offload work to the AI. But the stuff around where judgment is required, where you have to make an ethical choice. Those are the kinds of things that we need to hold on to as humans, right? So when we think about things that are going to affect a lot of people, or even one person, when it comes to like a complex medical diagnosis, like it's helpful to have AI in the process. Um, but at the same time, like the final call needs to be made by a human or a team of humans when the stakes are high, right?
But also, automation didn't start with AI. We're talking about automation using AI, but there are plenty of automation tools and processes that are very common in the workforce that don't involve AI. So, to your point, one of the things we look at with AI automation is it appropriate for AI? What does AI add to it? Even things like where do we need to make sure that there's not errors? Well, quality assurance processes are independent of AI. Anytime as a business that you're dealing with something that is customer critical, the level of care that you need to take towards that is significant. And so sometimes I do think that we overstate the challenges related to AI because they're actually challenges related to the modern workforce. And we do need to think about how those get used. Well, one of the things that AI is really great at is taking kind of fuzzy and imprecise information coming from lots of sources, making sense of it, and then processing it. What automation does is it takes that and it acts basically on your behalf, right? So it takes that information, understands it, sorts it, and then acts on it. Well, that means there are likely tasks that you might have wanted to automate, but you couldn't because it was too complex. There were too many variables to consider how to route something or what to do with it when you got it. So I would say any processy where there's a lot of repetition, but also potentially a lot of people touching the process because that means it's expensive and it means it takes time. Those are really good opportunities to evaluate for the suitability of AI and automation.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And I appreciate how that goes back nicely with what you were saying about, keep the human things human, right? You want to hear about the vision, you want to hear the inspiration. But let's put a pause because you mentioned, right, connecting like a chat bot to a knowledge base. That kind of sounds like it would require some like development skills or coding skills. Is this something that someone would need like a background in Python or programming to be able to build? Or do you think that this is something that is actually a little more accessible?
I do think it's more accessible. I think there's a lot of like no code options that are showing up where it's more about making sure that the knowledge is well organized and that the chatbot is kind of well set up, and that doesn't require coding or knowledge of Python, so on and so forth. But it does require an ability to think in systems and to think in workflows and to be able to like really like map out the journey that the employee is going to go through and understand the friction points and figure out like ways in which that those can be eased. I think those are the skills that are more important than say Python coding.
So, what process mapping is very simply creating and identifying the steps and the type of steps that are happening, who's involved with it, where that data comes from, whether or not it's repetitive, what is the trigger, meaning what starts it, and then what do you do depending on what it is. All of that can be communicated visually. And we are not all primarily visual, but many of us learn better visually. So process mapping is really critical for complex automations to make sure everybody understands it. But even for simple automations, it can be helpful. You have to be able to identify who is impacted and in what way in order to make sure that they buy into what you're doing with the automation. To have that conversation, we don't typically process a list of 20 different actions and go, oh yeah, that's the right process. That's what we're going to change. And we're going to change those 20 steps into 10 steps. You need to see it. So process mapping is this tool that you use both to bring everyone in, but also to check your own logic, which goes back to Danish's point around what skill are you really using here? You're not using coding, you're using logic. And I would say the second most important skill is communication. It's actually communicating to all the people that are impacted by this and making sure that, for example, you know where there needs to be a human in the loop. You know where the most important parts of the system are. And a visual tool like a process map it's the conversation blueprint for those conversations.
This is a big thing for me is that before you start any of this, you need to define your problem statement. That you can't just jump into AI and try and fix something. You need to, or else you're looking for it's a solution in search of a problem. So you need to really define your problem statement, and then you need to sit there and say, is this the right solution to even take? You don't want to use a tool just because the tool is cool, right? Oh, AI is fun. Let's use it to solve this problem. Well, sometimes the problem might just be solved by removing a step from what you're doing. You really need to almost do a quick little gap analysis on what you're doing and decide, is AI even the right solution? Because it may not.
When we look at topics like any topic around AI, there's a ton of free advice about what you should do. But what all of us who have worked in this area know is that it can really help to do a few big things. One is identify, where are there frameworks or common tools that you can use. And that's something that as a result of going through this course, you actually end up with, you have output, you have things that you can use to evaluate your own workflows. The other thing though is hands-on experience building. There's nothing like actually doing it. Having a bunch of people talk to you about it or reading articles about it is one thing, but you actually need the hands-on experience. And so one of the things I love that we do in our course is we have a sample, we have an example company that you can learn from, an example data, but you can also bring your problems from your workforce and work through them in the course and get hands-on experience trying to solve these. All of that work, that's the real work that happens for all of us in our teams. We don't sit and watch a YouTube video and then all of a sudden everything's magically great. We actually have lots and lots of steps that we take, and we all put a lot of thought for this course into what it's really like in a workplace, or even in your personal life, to be thinking about implementing these things. What things would practically work, make it faster, and make you more confident in what you're exploring and learning from.
That's a big one. This is an entire paradigm shift in how we work. This is bigger than switching from a typewriter to a computer, and that blew people's minds back in the 70s. We touch on that in this course because that's what you need to understand is this transformation is going to change everything you do. So you need to be ahead of that because that will make your life easier.
And while we talk a lot about AI, the truth is that we have not yet seen what this means for a consumer experience or how you work with AI, given that you can use voice, given the types of conversations that you can have. We haven't seen anything like it yet. So I actually think that we are very early days in terms of the implication for day-to-day use of AI. I would actually say that in terms of the cycles of technology adoption, we are back in the day of like, why would anyone sit in front of a monitor and post to an electronic bulletin board? I mean, it just seems like, how could that possibly make a difference? I mean, yes, I can communicate with someone around the world instantly. Okay, that's great, but is it really going to change everything? And we know the answer to that. Yes, because that technology, that moment, even back then, you could have extrapolated to what if, what if, what if.